While we're coming up, I'd like to, with a little voice I have left, say what a great pleasure it is to be here. It's we're all here now. I didn't plan long introductions of our incredibly great panel, which I think you'll enjoy, because I believe you have bio information with you already, and these guys are pretty well known. Vello Kuuskraa will start our panel. Nominee President of Advanced Resources International in Arlington, Virginia. Vello is our choice to open the panel because he's kind of the dean, in my view, of unconventional gas. It's just been this way. He's been aware and kind of singing this song for longer than most people are in the business. J Spigelmyer from here, head of the Marcellus Coalition. So much work to do, so much information to impart to people, so little understanding, and Dave's doing his part with that in a leadership way. Rusty Braziel, Rusty and I go back way back to Houston. Rusty's incredibly articulate, knowledgeable about the industry's played roles in trading and other leadership positions, and is now a founding president of RBN Energy, and is going to summarize. Before I turn this over to Vello, I just have to remark that I guess I'm older than I look. 40 years ago, when I entered this business, after having already worked for quite some time in energy, we were running out of gas. And gas supply was really the problem, and it was a serious problem. Industrial users could not get the gas they needed. It was given up for dead, which is, incredible. Maybe it was bad regulation. Maybe it was bad modeling. Oil was in shortage as well. We had gasoline lines only, around that time. So bad modeling, bad regulation. Hopefully, we're here all to improve that situation. Fast forward, and here we are standing on top of basically one of the largest gas fields that the world's ever discovered. In a sense, rediscovering, because of all the history of energy here. And as you go through the conference in the next couple of days, you're going to hear about some of this wonderful history of this area in energy, and its past leadership, and now resuming its leadership. So without further ado, people, just the ground rules. We never got a chance to have our presiders huddle. It's 20 minutes tops. And I have a little, my cell phone. I'm sure I have to say that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Can I get the first slide, please? Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. As soon as I get my slides up, I'll kind of go into the formal part of the presentation.
Do I have to do something?
All right. I've got a key if they're missing. On the top one. All right, and go forward and use these keys. Okay. Thank you very much. Consistent with the theme of the whole conference, the dynamics of energy, I'm going to focus down on the dynamics of North American natural gas supply. We're really a geology and engineering firm, and that helps us be quite grounded in the fundamentals of supply. And we bring some of that up forward and try to tie it together into models and projections, supply and prices and demand, things like But let me start with a little background. Ben already introduced that. The natural gas industry has gone through really what I consider an amazing transformation. I can't think of another energy commodity that has witnessed the kind of changes that we have seen in the past decade. From fears of scarcity, that's kind of the time period that Ben was talking about less than a decade ago, we moved to what I would call expectations of plenty, and now to supply glut, with market prices below industry's break-even costs. I'll come back to that topic in a minute. The LNG terminals that were built to receive imports are being converted to handle exports, and domestic gas prices, once linked to oil prices, a ratio of about 10 to 1, have decoupled, and they're today around 18, 20 to 1, depending on what's happening in the market. And so these changes have been so swift that many still question the economic viability of supplies, particularly from these very large shale resources. Just a short 8 years ago, as I introduced, the outlook was quite different. This is the National Petroleum Council's 2007 report, The Hard Truths, and a big topic that they addressed was the expected supply flows of natural gas. Yes, in my view, they got the pathways kind of correct. They just put the arrows in the wrong place. And this is what caused the transformation, of course. Now it started with, of course, the Great Barnett, the Fayetteville shales, and moved on to others. But today, the big focus is the Marcellus and the Utica, as well as associated gas from shale tight oil. And they've, since that 2007, which I kind of mark as the beginning of the Shale Revolution, U.S. gas supplies have grown by over 21 BCF, and you see the big wedge at the top. That's the shales. I think one of the difficulties, and this is what Ben was alluding to, if one was just looking at conventional supplies, yes, they were on a decline, yet there was this large volume of coal bed methane type gas, and then at the end shales that just changed the outlook tremendously. And it's been one of the more difficult commodities to basically project forward, even today. And the way I like to call it, a year of living irrationally. Those of you who saw the movie, A Year of Living Dangerously, can kind of make that connection. If you put the kind of numbers into your models, even particularly current low oil natural gas prices, one would come out with relatively limited activity that would be economically justified, and supply should be declining. And of course, that's not happening. If you look at the fundamentals, and I looked at the first half of a large number of the E&P companies, their financial statements, took out the hedges, and what you find is that the cost of production, the drilling cost and the production cost, have been in excess of what the market is willing to pay. And that doesn't even include any return on capital itself. Active rigs are down from their peak, yet we still have about 800 oil and gas rigs active. And then, and even with both capital and rigs down, natural gas production continues to grow. So in our view, this past 10 months of activity by the industry, it's been one of the longest periods of what I would call irrational behavior, economically irrational behavior, and destruction of shareholder value. And so we have to look behind the numbers, say, what is causing this type of behavior? Can we capture it in the kind of modelings that you guys look at? And basically, there are some reasons. First, of course, is this massive number of drilled but uncompleted wells. if you look back what happened during 2014, particularly the second half, created a massive wave of new development. These wells are only now being put on production, and just to give you a quick example, even with the rig count down in 2/3 in the Marcellus and the Bakken, we're going to put on stream about the same number of wells this year as last year. Now they'll catch up with us, but that's one of the reasons production is up. There's always improved well performance and low well cost, and that's been the hallmark of the unconventional gas revolution. The practitioners are always looking for better ways, higher productivity wells. And while that has taken place, it hasn't been enough to compensate for the much lower natural gas prices. And then the third item, I kind of irrelevantly call it beggar thy neighbor, but each company has a motivation to produce and create cash flow, and they're hoping somebody else is the one that cuts back. A big part has been this drilled but uncompleted wells. What we did was to take basically the Marcellus Shale drilling for the past 5 years. I took the time of well to spud, a proxy for rigs, the time for well comes of production as a proxy for productive capacity, and what you see is this massive time lag. And maybe if you follow kind of the yellow brick road, there were about 1,800 wells spud in 2011, and you can follow only less than 20% were completed in that year, about half the following year, and a number of them in successive years itself. So you can see that even if we cut back in wells, a large number of wells will come online this year itself. And that, while the Marcellus is an extreme case of this example because of the number of restrictions, pipeline issues, and so on, it's not out of line with many of the other plays. So one lesson you might take from here is to capture the lags in the system that are in place. So let me then kind of focus down a little more into the supply side and talk about this, the Marcellus and a few other plays. And it's really, this is the new powerhouse of production. There's kind of the old Upper Devonian with upper parts like the Huron previously developed, but then the Marcellus has come on, and now it's a Utica, Point Pleasant, and together there's just a massive volume of technically recoverable gas that's available in this basin. One of these areas is in the northeast area. It goes by the acronym BLT, Bradford, Lycoming, Tioga. You can see the red blob there, just a massive concentration of gas in place. This area accounted for well more than half of the gas that was produced in the Marcellus. It's a dry gas play area. One of the things that has made it so attractive is a graph or a table from Southwestern Energy. You can see the first column, the well productivities have continued to improve. 30th day production from a little over 5 to 7 to 7.5 million. And on the other far side, you see that the well costs have been continued coming down from 7 to below 6 million. And with these dual improvements, in our view, this is the lowest cost dry shale gas play in the country. The next emerging play is really the Utica sweet spot. And you know, if we just move a little west or south of here, you'll be right there. And what has made it so exciting are these very large initial IP type of wells, even the one that EQT drilled recently, the Scotch Run at 73 million a day. There are still some issues about the play that longer term data will play out. For example, you can see the Bigfoot well. It started out at 42 million a day, and basically a month later it was down to 14. So the decline curves here can be very steep, and industry will need to work out ways to try to arrest that steep decline. Oh, and then the other one I want to talk about is Canada. Oh, Canada. Canada, almost, if you look back a year or two, almost everyone was projecting a continued decline in the availability of Canadian production. And the same story is emerging in Canada. It's the Canadian unconventional gas production that is countering the decline in conventional gas. And particularly, it's the Montney resource play in northern BC and the border of BC and Alberta, and as well as the same kind of associated gas. And I think this is kind of theme that'd be useful to take out of here. Canada is no longer resource limited for natural gas. That's a major turnaround. It's now an economic issue. And their ability to compete both in US markets as well as in the LNG market. And so this is the mighty Montney. It's the Marcellus of Canada is the way to look at it. I thought you might enjoy that analog. We kind of break the resource into very different parts of the play, from a very liquid-rich play in the east to a deep dry gas play in the west. And it's, if you kind of look at it, what makes it so massive is this, again, this stack of resources. And each of those check marks represents a potential opportunity, and you can see kind of the wells that are being targeted in about 5 or 6 of these formations today. So all of this is just kind of background to introduce the topic of the dynamics of North American natural gas supply. I think this is a rich area for other investigation and research. Much of the work in the past has looked at the dynamics of demand. I would argue that the dynamics of supply are equally challenging. And so with that, how can one begin to get a better, more confident outlook for North American natural gas? And I would argue that there are at least 3 pieces of it. Really need to get the detailed cost supply, just like I showed, carve up these basins because they're not all uniform. And we need to break up the unconventional resources into 221 distinct plays. We need to incorporate the dynamics of supply. And it's always this struggle between basically resource depletion of the highly productive core areas and the changes that are taking place in terms of resource flows. And then, of course, there are always certain constraints. And so here are my 4, and there are many others, aspects of what's important to capture in the dynamics of supply. First, of course, technology, progress, and learning. This is what has made the Shale Revolution, made the unconventional gas revolution, both here and it will make that worldwide. Second is there's a strong relationship between prices and costs. Third, the whole integration of liquids, particularly natural gas liquids, but also the condensate, so on, have a tremendous influence on the break-even price of natural gas. And then there's always resource depletion. And they're going to, all these come together with demand to basically set the market clearing price for natural gas. Coming back to the dynamics of well productivity, up in Bradford County, well performance there has been relatively flat. In the past year, basically it's improved vastly and just changed the outlook for that entire area in terms of its economic competitiveness. In the other end of the state, southwest PA, as producers are learning how to best produce these liquid-rich plays, a lot of erratic behavior, but again, recently a doubling of performance. And of course, if you double, basically the denominator, you cut the cost, which is the numerator, in half. I talked a little about natural gas liquids. Many of these plays incorporate that. That's one of the hallmarks of the shale production. And you can see that if you start with a dry gas well, which kind of puts you out of the economic range, or around 460 break even. Incorporating natural gas liquids into it drops that cost by about 67 cents. And then as oil prices change, the market Braziel's changes, the break-even costs here drop by over $1. And then, of course, there's resource depletion. Not everything goes up. Other things come down. This is, of course, the Barnett Shale that kicked off the Shale Revolution. And you can see that it peaked at nearly 6 BCF a day in 2012. And it's been slowly coming down. And if you now look at the drilling permits, particularly look at it this year, you can see that the play is on its steep decline. The core area has been drilled. Now you're having to step into the extension areas where the economics are not as strong. And here's a case where resource depletion has outrun technology improvements. And this will happen in other plays over time. There's also, of course, the topic of getting the gas out of the basin. It's been just this rapid growth has created the glut. We put together some numbers here, what we expect Appalachian production to grow, basically 2 to 3 BCF a day per year. And Appalachian consumption, of course, grows relatively slowly. And so there's a growing surplus of gas available to export. Fortunately, we put together kind of the pipeline systems that are being planned here, not just to the mid-continent, but also to the Gulf Coast. You can see that somewhere toward the end of 2016, 2017, there will be adequate capacity. So then that begins to move that gas into different parts of the U.S. and potentially creating a second order of constraints and issues to address. So with that, the gas industry is continuing to basically what I would call muddle through the most turbulent and very uncertain period. Break-even costs are basically, the prices are below break-even costs, not just returning on capital. You can only continue that long. We looked, as I mentioned, looked at the economics. I'm on the board of one of the, I think now the third largest U.S. producer of gas, Southwestern Energy. It's the same situation. There is activity in the very best plays, particularly with lower costs, but the development of these core areas, what I call resource depletion, is still continuing at a rapid pace. Still, the resource base is large and has steadily increased in the past years. And so it's really how this outlook for demand, and we will see that hopefully someone will address that part of it, from exports, industrial plants, power generation, begins to converge with these dynamics of supply. It's really what will set the price, in our view, for the coming months and years forward. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Thanks to IAEE and Ben. I appreciate the invite to be on the panel this morning. I would apologize up front for being a bit myopically focused on my presentation being primarily the Marcellus, and I guess I would begin by asking those of you in the audience, how many of you have natural gas in your home? That's wonderful. It's an education for those of us in the industry when folks realize that there's more to natural gas than just heating your home, cooking your food, drying your clothes, heating your hot water. when folks start to realize that nearly every single consumer product that they use today, all steel, glass, plastics, chemicals, fertilizers, powdered metals, life-sustaining pharmaceutical medications, today 1 in 3 electrons that are produced in our power generation mix are produced with the use of natural gas. It creates a far different picture than what folks view as the norm. And here in Pennsylvania, state here in the U.S., we've had a long history in production of natural gas. Although we only produce about a quarter of our natural gas supply, we produce 180 BCF annually. Today we're producing 4.3 trillion cubic feet of natural gas annually, or 23% of America's natural gas supply coming out of this state. You use the entire region, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, and producing more than 25% of America's natural gas demand out of this region through shale and unconventional development. It's an extraordinary feat in a very, very short period of time. I look across the audience, I see a couple of friends that I've been active in this industry with for the past 33 years. Most of us thought, I'm sure many of you here thought that this industry had been pretty much written off in terms of production of natural gas to make any meaningful strides towards meeting America's demand for energy. And I think as Ben's shared in his early comments, we went through a period in the 70s where we passed the Industrial Fuel Use Act, basically limiting the use of natural gas in the U.S. And looking at a period of scarcity and high cost. And today, a period of abundance and affordability. If there's one thing that you take away from my presentation focused on Pennsylvania today, is we're in a period where consumers are the primary benefactor from extraordinary supplies of natural gas. Put it in perspective, February of 2008, wellhead prices of natural gas topped $13.70 per MMBTU. This year, today, bid week pricing for Marcellus development in Pennsylvania, $1.05 bid week October. It's an extraordinary path in a very, very short period of time. As Ben shared, I represent the Marcellus Shale Coalition. We have about 250 producers, pipeline companies, liquids producers, fractionators, and supply chain companies focused on the responsible development of shale here in Pennsylvania. My role again on this panel would be to support what's going on here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and share with you just a few of the key dynamics that we have undergone in the Commonwealth. First of all, the Marcellus is the largest shale play in the U.S. According to Terry Enggelder, professor at Penn State University, 489 TCF of economically recoverable natural gas in the Marcellus alone. That's not a snapshot that includes the Utica, and certainly the test production that we've seen so far in the Utica shows very, very promising returns in that shale as well. Today we're producing more than 16 BCF a day. More than 40% of all U.S. shale production is coming out of the Utica, or out of the Marcellus, 7 times our production from 2010 to current, and we continue to grow. We're the second largest producer of natural gas in the U.S. as well. Give you a quick look at the state of our industry. I would share with you with economics where they are today. It's a uncertainty or gas pricing erosion that I spoke a moment ago. Basis reductions in the U.S. Are significant, but here in PA they're the deepest discounts of anywhere in the country. 3 primary pricing points that I would throw onto the table would be 96 cents in Tennessee Zone 4, the eastern part of Pennsylvania. A little over $1 at Leidy in the central part of Pennsylvania, $1.16, I believe, at Dominion South Point. Creates an average price of about $1.05 in Pennsylvania. And when, keep it in my slides here, when you put that into perspective with the reduction to gather gas and to get gas into the pipeline systems today, you're actually selling gas in many parts of the Commonwealth at or near 50 cents. This is a quick look here of unconventional well activity. The only reason I bring this up at this point is to make sure that you see that there is a decline right now in activity across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We've dropped rig count dramatically. That'll be my next slide. But you'll see this is a monthly snapshot of well activity, of permits requested and well activity. We've showed a significant decline over time, and I think today we're down to about 29 rigs active in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We have grown pretty dramatically in terms of efficiencies. I think Vello talked about the fact that we've reduced costs for drilling natural gas wells or unconventional natural gas wells in Pennsylvania, but we've also increased returns as well through longer laterals. I think we were talking about shale gas production in 2008. Average lateral length, horizontal portion of the well would have been 2,000 to 3,000 feet out from the original well location, and today we're out 7,000 to 10,000 feet. Far more efficient, far more productive. Those wells in 2008 would have taken us 60 days to drill. Today we're drilling those wells in 20 days on average. I talked a little bit about the basis reductions that exist in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is a look at Henry Hub pricing at average 256. This is a slide from last week. Certainly those change a bit, but average price across Pennsylvania is $1.05. That doesn't take into account the cost to gather, as well as post-production costs and what we call an impact fee. I'm going to get real myopic on you here in a moment, talk a little bit about a few policy issues in Pennsylvania that we're grappling with today. And that's the issue of adding new taxation on top of an industry that already, I would say, has dropped more than $10 billion of planned capital expansion for Pennsylvania in the last 10 months. Those of you that were watching fourth quarter discussions of many of the operators in the Marcellus and watched what took place over the end of the fourth quarter and the early first quarter of this year, we have indeed watched $10 billion of planned capital expansion from Pennsylvania. Nearly every one of our operators have reduced staffing, which has put significant pressure on our supply chain as well. Back in 2012, we did pass an impact fee that today is equivalent to roughly an 8% tax on industry. The new governor in Pennsylvania would add additional taxation on this industry, and it's got us in the middle of a pretty significant fight that we're grappling with in Harrisburg today. The governor's proposal, the reason we push back, is equivalent to an additional 14% tax on the industry. It would generate about $97 million, not the $1 billion that he professes. And this would also would increase personal income taxes to 3.5%. And it was defeated just 2 weeks ago at a 127 vote to 73. As I mentioned a moment ago, we do have an impact fee that spreads revenue all throughout the counties, all 67 counties of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's collected $856 million over the last 3 years. It has been a revenue generator for all regions of the Commonwealth, but certainly those rural regions where shale has taken place have been the most significant benefactors. This is a look annually of the revenues generated, on average a little over $200 million. It, again, is spread 60% to the counties and local governments where shale is being produced, 40% for statewide programs, including a $6 million allocation to our State Department of Environmental Protection to improve both permit writing and have inspectors available to look at well operations on a daily basis. Benefit to consumers, and the one area where I wanted to spend the bulk of my time. I think many folks know that natural gas historically in the U.S. has been the last dispatched fuel for power generation. It has had a dampening effect on price at a time when rate caps were coming off. I think back in 2008, 2009, our Public Utility Commission here in Pennsylvania had warned consumers that rate caps were coming off. Consumer electric rates would rise anywhere from 30% to 100%. At the same time, natural gas prices were dropping dramatically as a result of shale being produced here in the Commonwealth and across our country. Softening of price in 2009 certainly moved much more natural gas into power generation, and has had certainly a dampening effect on power generation costs across the country. Natural gas prices being used, natural gas for consumers certainly have dropped across the country, but certainly here in Pennsylvania we've seen price reductions anywhere from 46% to 64% to consumers that use natural gas. I think the real opportunity, as I mentioned a moment ago, was the opportunity for manufacturing. And we're certainly, as a coalition, working to try and drive much of the dialogue towards heightening new opportunities for manufacturing, reeling some of the businesses that we have lost internationally, to bring their investments back to Pennsylvania, bring their investments back to the U.S. to invest here, to grow jobs here, and produce products here at a fraction of the cost due to the fact that we have far more affordable energy. Again, average annual savings to consumers here in Pennsylvania have been upwards of $1,200 according to IHS. Again, a huge benefit, and those low-income consumers use more than 30% of their disposable income is spent on energy. It's been a real benefit to low-income consumers, not only here in Pennsylvania, but across the country. Here's a look at purchase gas cost rates across Pennsylvania, and I think you can see what I was trying to say there is that anywhere from 46% to 64% reduction to consumer gas rates across Pennsylvania. Been a major benefit. Again, market opportunities for electric generation and home heating. Certainly, we've been working with state regulators to expand service territories for local utilities, to look for combined heat and power applications, to take a location like northern Pennsylvania. I think Vello mentioned Bradford County. We have an operator, a major Procter & Gamble, major manufacturing, that basically have cut their power pole, use shale gas today to provide the energy for their industrial application. It's been a huge winner for them, and we're trying to duplicate that very model across the Commonwealth. I think everyone knows that the U.S. has probably been a little slow to the uptake on using natural gas in our vehicle fleets. We've certainly made some significant strides to take municipal bus fleets towards compressed natural gas, to use LNG, and over-the-road trucking. Certainly companies like Waste Management, UPS come to mind, that have put a fair amount of resources into changing the way they operate daily in terms of energy for over-the-road transportation. It's reducing it reduces not only their fuel costs but their maintenance costs as well. And it's certainly a bit of we can drink our own milk here if we're able to use natural gas in our vehicle applications. Feedstocks for other industries as well that use liquids. And again, as I talked a moment ago, the rebirth of manufacturing. Many of our operators today are focused on export potential. We have a number of facilities that are under licensing right now with the federal government. I think the closest to this region is the Cove Point facility, about 320 miles from this location, where the Dominion, one of the local companies that are active here out of Richmond, is working to change the way they historically have been an import facility, to basically change that facility to be an export facility, collect gas from shale region here in this region to liquefy natural gas and move it to foreign markets, and certainly strengthen our geopolitical standing as a nation. One of the big changes for this region, one that we're spending a fair amount of time talking about today, is that we don't have ethylene cracking here in western Pennsylvania. Basically the ability to take ethane, which is a primary product of the western natural gas production in the Marcellus. One of the things I probably should have up here is a map of Pennsylvania. The Marcellus is split in two unique geographic regions. The southwestern part of Pennsylvania is an underpressured region of the Marcellus. It has a lot of heavy hydrocarbons, ethane, pentane, butane, isobutane, propane, natural gasolines. The primary liquid being produced there is ethane, and we do not have a lot of ethane solutions today. Today it's to ship it out of here, primarily to the east. Our focus today is to try and get cracking technology built here in this region so that we can produce products here, regrow manufacturing, the paints and plastics, the adhesive, the tires, and you can see on that ethylene chain what that means from a manufacturing standpoint. It is a huge opportunity for us to regrow jobs and opportunity here in an area where, I think it's fair to say, in Pittsburgh, an area where for the last 3 decades we've been writing the obituary for manufacturing, where today we have the ability to rewrite the birth announcement for new manufacturing opportunities and new job generation here in this region. Certainly we've made major strides on the technology side, but today we have the ability through manufacturing and through our labor force to put folks back to work here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Ben, we'll save time for comments and we'll move on. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, USAEE, for asking me to join you this morning. You know, today's energy markets are in a very interesting position. From one perspective, like we've been talking about, it's an uncharted territory, with the Shale Revolution responsible for huge productivity improvements and continuing oversupply, not only in gas, but also in natural gas liquids and crude oil. But from another perspective, particularly from the gas market side of things, all of this looks eerily familiar. Hence my subtitle here, we've seen this movie before. Too much regional supply, resulting in very low regional prices, just like Ed was talking about, to be relieved by lots of new infrastructure that's going to be built that are going to be maybe bringing those low prices to a much wider geography. For those of you who were involved in the natural gas markets about 10 years ago, all this may seem familiar. But before we get to the punchline, let's drop back and talk about what got us here and then what that means about where we're going. This is a slide that I like to start some of my presentations with. It gives an order of magnitude of the volumes that we're talking about. I think it helps put things in perspective. 57% increase in lower 48 natural gas production over the past few years. That happens to be 85% of the world LNG market. We were going to import it, now we're going to export it. It's a big market, it's huge, it's going to save the natural gas producers in the United States. We've increased production by 85% of that entire global market in just the last 7 years. LPG, natural gas liquids. This is the two fastest growing LPG, or natural gas liquids, propane and butane. The fastest growing hydrocarbon market in the world, more than double over the past 5 years or so. Notice that NGL started growing a little after natural gas did and then caught up like crazy. Finally, crude oil up 82%. To put that one in perspective, that is up 3 Alaskas in the last 2 years. It was 4 Alaskas, but we lost an Alaska in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, something like that. But nevertheless, it's a lot. What has that done to rig count? Actually, it's done exactly to prices and the rig count, what you'd expect. Natural gas price fell, and remember, this is not the first price crash we've seen. We saw a price crash in gas, we then saw a price crash in NGLs, now we got a price crash in crude oil. Well, it was the natural gas price crash that started the whole thing, and rig count did exactly what it was supposed to. 100% correlation. Natural gas fell, rig count fell accordingly. Same thing happened on the upside and the downside for crude oil prices and crude oil rig count. Crude oil went up, went down, rig count went up, went down, happened just the way it was supposed to. But we've just been talking about the fact that natural gas production, crude oil production, all are pretty close to their all-time highs. How could that be? How could that make any sense for production to be that high when this is what's happened to prices and rig count? Well, it's productivity. Let's look at an example of exactly what kind of productivity improvement that we've seen. These are EOG numbers out of their statistics that they put out every quarter for their financial reports over the past 5 years. In the Eagle Ford, 5 years ago, it took them 22 days to drill a well. Now it takes them 7 days to drill that same well. If we just do some math and divide those numbers into 365, we can find out how many wells a given rig can drill in a year. 16 wells in 2011. This year, 49 wells, or a 200% improvement. There's something else going on as well. The volume that can be achieved, the initial production rates out of those wells has essentially doubled. From 533 barrels of oil in a well in 2011 up to 1,000 barrels a day in 2015. So let's just do some more math. Let's multiply 16 times 533, and that'll tell us how much crude oil production could be added by a single rig back 5 years ago versus 49 times 1,000 to see how much crude oil can be added by a given rig today. That is a 428% improvement. 9,000 barrels a day 5 years ago, 49,000 barrels a day today. Outside of Silicon Valley and that sort of thing, I don't know anybody, any other industry that is seeing that sort of level of productivity improvement. And you say, well, that's Eagle Ford and that's EOG, poster child, sure, they're growing that kind of productivity. How about everybody else? Fortunately, our good friends at EIA, Alan has put together a nice thing called the Drilling Productivity Report that tells us just exactly that. Overall, looking at the Drilling Productivity Report, comes out every month out of the EIA, a 238% improvement in the Eagle Ford oil overall. Bakken, 185% overall. 196% Permian. You say, okay, that's oil. Surely nothing like that is happening with natural gas. Wrong, no. The improving area in terms of its productivity is the Marcellus Utica, up 391% productivity improvement over the past few years. So, huge improvements. What does that mean for rates of return? Well, Vello talked about rates of return. We look at things just a little bit differently. And the rates of return that I'm going to show you here are what I call half-cycle rates of return, which means I'm not going to include the cost of the lease, I'm not going to include the cost of any kind of exploration work that was done or any upfront cost. All I'm going to look at is just the cost of drilling the well and compare that against the revenues generated from that well based on the typical type curves in the basins that I'm going to show you, and the prices that I'll show on the top banner of this thing. And we're going to hold the prices constant, we're going to hold the cost constant, so they're pretty simple economics, but they do give you a good sense of the relative economics of each one of these basins and what is produced out of those basins over a period of time. In the interest of time, I'm going to only show you a couple of these. First, I'm going to start with the good old days, fall of 2014. Back then, crude oil was $90 a barrel, natural gas $3.